justice, and one of the ways that we do that is to build and manage affordable housing. So we definitely have a very strong opinion about the Atlantic Yards project specifically because of that part of our mission. Several weeks ago, it was learned that Florida City Ratner Companies was planning to sell 70% of its equity in the Atlantic Yards project to Greenland Holdings. That $3 billion worth of equity that they plan to sell, and you may know that Greenland Holdings is a Chinese-based developer. 70% stake is obviously very significant, and this is the single largest project in Brooklyn that's being developed. We're all here to call on the New York State Empire State Development Corporation to defer the approval of the sale of equity until there's a written and binding commitment with the state to deliver the long public benefits, especially the affordable housing. Our state government cannot allow Forest City Ratner to cash out on the Atlantic Yards project before the majority of public benefits have actually been delivered. Fifth Avenue Committee alone, I actually brought a prop because this is representative. This represents over 9,000 people that are on affordable housing notification list. That Fifth Avenue Committee alone has. There's a tremendous demand for affordable housing. We have to ensure and leverage this conversation that's going on between Forest City Ratner Companies and Greenland Holdings to ensure that those public benefits are delivered to the people of New York City, and in particular the communities around Brooklyn. And that the project is accountable to the public and not to private or foreign interests. So I'd like to invite up Assemblymember Jim Brennan and the elected officials behind me and more joining to each make statements. And if you can just hold questions until the end, that would be great. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm State Assemblymember Jim Brennan. I have represented parts of the Park Slope area for almost 29 years, although I was 6 years old when I was first elected. I'm here to begin a discussion of Atlantic Yards and affordable housing. I want to thank everyone here for coming. I especially want to thank a number of my colleagues in government who are joining me. To my right, Assemblywoman Joan Millman. Behind me, Public Advocate-elect and City Councilwoman Letitia James. To my left, Assemblymember Walter Mosley from the 57th Assembly District, and State Senator Belmonette Montgomery. We're going to be joined shortly by Councilmember Levin, and it is my task to read a statement by a group of elected officials who have signed this, and I'm going to let you know who they are before I complete the before I finish the statement. They are myself, Assemblymember Kareem Kamara, Assemblymember Joseph Lentol, Assemblymember Joan Millman, Assemblymember Walter Mosley, State Senator Belmonette Montgomery, City Council members Letitia James, Brad Lander, and Stephen Levin, Councilmember-elect Lori Cumbo, and United States Representatives Yvette Clark, Hakeem Jeffries, and Nydia Velasquez, a substantial number of the elected officials whose districts overlap and or surround the project. So here is our statement. In the 7 years since the approval of the Atlantic Yards project, an arena has been built, but commitments of affordable housing for Brooklynites remain unmet. During the same time, the market for luxury apartments in Brooklyn has exploded, while the borough's crisis in affordable housing spirals further out of control. We've watched with concern as the state has resisted taking action to ensure public benefits financed with taxpayer dollars are delivered as promised, even when faced with a court order recently issued to compel the review of the impacts from delaying completion from 10 to 25 years, up to 2035. ESDC in that court decision failed to, or what the decision said, had failed to consider the impacts of the delay. And now people living in the neighborhoods surrounding the project are being displaced at an alarming rate, which is particularly true for the many families and elderly who are being priced out of their homes due to gentrification. Now, instead of offering accountability to the people of New York, Forest City Ratner Companies has announced plans to sell a majority interest in Atlantic Yards to a developer. Today we call on Governor Cuomo, ESDC, and Forest City Ratner to do the following. First, ESDC should defer approval of any sale of Forest City Ratner's interest in the project until a study of alternatives to expedite construction consistent with the order from the State Supreme Court has been completed. Second, that ESDC make any sale of Forest City Ratner's interest contingent on a written commitment to deliver the affordable apartments planned for Atlantic Yards projects in the time frame in which they were originally promised. That would be by 2020. Third, that the Governor, ESDC, and Forest City Ratner publicly commit to improving the accountability of the Atlantic Yards project to the public, stating their support of legislation to create a dedicated local development corporation to oversee the project until its completion, whose board would include representatives from the community. Thank you very much, and we'll be happy. And now we'll go to Walter Mosley from the 57th Assembly. Thank you for being here, Walter.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I'll just be real brief. Back in 2006, it was a promise that over 2,200 units of affordable housing was going to be built upon completion of this project in 2015. We fast forward that 7 years later. Now we've been told by 2016 will be completed. We'll have 2,250 units of affordable housing. Fast forward that now 7 years later. Now we're being told by 2015 we'll have a handful of units available for housing. Clearly, this was the crux of why we're here. All of us are aware that a home court has been built for an NBA basketball team. But the reason why New Yorkers invested over $700 million in tax subsidies and abatements is because we wanted to build a home court advantage for Brooklynites. We wanted to build a home court advantage for working class men and women. We wanted to build a home court advantage for the people who made Brooklyn what it is today, a collection of neighborhoods where people accept one another for who they are and what they are. And unfortunately, we are now at a time in which Brooklyn, as it exists today in this particular footprint of this arena, will no longer exist. And obviously, we know that the new New York is open for business, but we need to know that the new New York is open for business for the men and women and children who make Brooklyn what it is today. And so I stand wholeheartedly with my colleagues in government, my advocacy groups like Fifth Avenue Committee, in an effort to make sure that we crystallize loud and clear the intentions of this deal to create a co-development where we'll have a disproportionate and unevenly yoked relationship between Greenlands Holdings and Forest City Ratner. And our efforts to make sure that we have real issues addressed as it relates to affordable housing. Likewise, making sure that there are real remedial measures put in place if those commitments are not met. Because clearly, if we continue to go down this road, we'll continue to be here talking about the same issues and problems going forward. So I want to thank you again for allowing us to have this press conference and allowing us to be able to talk on behalf of our constituents, because this is why we're here. We're not here to pick a battle or pick a fight for the sake of picking a fight, but we're here to make sure that Brooklynites are taken care of, because they're the ones who made this investment. And like anybody, whether you're in business or not, you're looking to get a return on your investment eventually. So thank you so much, and I will now hand it over back to Jim.
Thank you, Assemblymember Mosley. Our next speaker will be Assemblymember Joe Millman from the 52nd Assembly District.
Thanks, Jim. And thanks to the Fifth Avenue Committee for hosting this. From many accounts, the Barclays Center has been a huge success. Now we're home of the Nets, many, not all. And the Islanders are soon to follow. We've had entertainers from Justin Bieber to Barbara Streisand, Disney on Ice. The place is packed. But to quote, almost quote, a famous line from a movie, show us the affordable housing. The promise of affordable housing convinced many elected officials, including myself, to support the project from the get-go. And now there's a 2-year delay in the completion of the very first unit. It hasn't happened now, and we're now going to wait an additional 2 years to see it happen. And even when it's completed, only 10 of the 35 affordable 2-bedroom units will be offered to families making an average Brooklyn income. And we're talking about working families here. Families who have been displaced, families who are looking to stay in Brooklyn, who get constantly and consistently squeezed out of every single neighborhood that all of us represent. There's so much gentrification going on. People who want to stay, want to contribute, want to continue to be the fabric of what makes Brooklyn, Brooklyn, are being squeezed out of their homes. Now, I can't imagine what interest Greenland has in low-income working families in Brooklyn. I can't imagine they have any. So again, what I want to say is, where's the affordable housing? Why do we have to wait for it so long? Why are they getting out of the business of housing? They can't make enough money. So again, show us the affordable housing and don't make us wait 15 years to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Joan. Our next speaker will be State Senator Velma Montgomery.
Thank you. I just want to start by acknowledging, first of all, the Avenue Committee. And we have to say to Michelle and the Fifth Avenue Committee organization that you have really done what we would hope to be doing with this project, and that is developing truly affordable housing in this borough. So we thank you for that. And I also want to thank my colleague, our new, what we are going to experience as the best advocate that we've ever had in the city, Tish James. I'm predicting what she's going to be, but we also know what she has done with regard to organizing elected officials as well as community around this project. So we thank you. And I want to just, by way of full disclosure, I never was an advocate for this project. I never thought that this was going to yield for us as much as we wanted to see come out of a project of this magnitude, for both in terms of commercial jobs as well as housing, affordable housing, an equitable mix of housing. So obviously the disappointment for me goes very deep. So however, we have the arena and we have whatever we have, but we note that in the beginning, we as a community requested that this project be broken up so that we could have a number of developers bidding to create a plan that was commensurate with what the community would like to see. We were not against development, but we were for equitable development so that the entire community's interest would be realized based on this project. That never happened. We ended up with a sole source developer who has now sold most of his equity to other people. And in fact, we don't really know where we're going to have some leverage to enforce the commitments that we thought we had from the original developer. So this is a very sad time for us, but I'm happy that my colleague here, who is really he is the main man on this piece, because he is the chair of commissions and authorities in the assembly, and he has really brought us here to say that at least we should move up the development of affordable housing to make sure that's number one. We should be able to get ESDC and the city to enforce a commitment to make sure that there is equitable development of affordable housing. So I'm happy to join my colleagues, and we will continue this struggle and hope that going forward we'll see a little bit different, a little bit more willingness on the part of our government partners to make sure that this is realized. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Our next speaker will be City Council member and public advocate-elect and friend, Letitia James.
So the election last week was mandated support of a more progressive agenda in the city of New York. And one of the issues that most individuals are talking about, particularly as you visit the Talking Transition tent in Manhattan all throughout the city of New York, is the crisis in affordable housing. From Brooklyn to the Bronx to all 5 boroughs, to the Rockaways, to Staten Island, to Queens, everyone is feeling this displacement in their own community. Countless number of individuals, as I met individuals all throughout the city, have said they've lost control of their community. They're being displaced from their community. They're having to make decisions between paying their rent and purchasing food. And so I cannot think of something more pertinent, more relevant, more necessary than the need to build more affordable housing immediately. And that is why I'm so happy that Mayor-elect de Blasio is committed to building over 200,000 units of affordable housing moving forward, and I look forward to working with him. And in this particular project, Forest City Ratner, as you know, has decided to build the first building modular. It's being built in the Navy Yard as we speak. But he did a reversal on that. He decided to make the units smaller. A number of individuals who have supported this project thought that he would build larger units for families. He decided not. He decided not to do that. He decided to build more studios in 1 bedroom as opposed to 2s and 3s, which is needed in this neighborhood. And so now here he is trying to kick out the plan and selling over 70% of his interest in this project to an organization that we really don't have any relationship with and have no experience. And so I say to Governor Cuomo, who has allowed, unfortunately, this project to go on without any reviews, without any transparency, without any accountability, without any oversight. It's time that Governor Cuomo, in addition to saving our hospitals, it's time that he focus on the Atlantic Yards, including ESDC under the leadership of Ken Adams. And as was mentioned previously, although he's in a contract with this particular company, I think that the governor should consider not-for-profit organizations to build the affordable housing who have a track record of doing it on time and consistent with the needs of the community. I know nothing about this company. I don't know if they respect labor laws. I don't know if they respect unions. I don't know if they are interested in building affordable housing. I'm not sure whether or not they're interested in building apartments that reflect the needs in the borough of Brooklyn. I'm not sure whether or not they will hire locally. I'm not sure of anything, whether or not they'll purchase their products, whether or not they'll have a labor agreement. I don't know anything of the sort. All I know is that there is an agreement before ESDC for approval, and we're all supposed to accept it. And we don't know what the timeline is. And so I'm urging Ken Adams, I'm urging Governor Cuomo, 1, for a timeline, 2, to really review this deal, 3, to bring in not-for-profit organizations and perhaps to provide them with some of the landscape under the Atlantic Yards. They have been part of this community for generations. And if anyone is an expert on building affordable housing, it's an organization such as Fifth Avenue Committee, and let me throw in their sister organization, Pratt Area Community Council, and other great organizations in the borough of Brooklyn. It's time that we focus on the felt needs of the residents of the city of New York. It's time that we stop appealing to real estate brokers and real estate interests in the city of New York. The people have spoken. They spoke on election day, and they spoke loudly and clearly. And what they want is a change. And I would argue a more progressive change in the city of New York. It's time that we change this project. We need leadership from the top. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tish. Our next speaker, Councilmember Steve Webben. Thank you for coming, Steve.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Assemblyman Brennan and to my colleagues in government. Kind of following up on what Assemblymember Millman said, which said, show me the affordable housing. The state slogan of Missouri is the show me state, right? Because they're appropriately skeptical of promises that are made. And I gotta be honest with you, at this point in time right now, I feel like my head is spinning with all the promises that we see from developers, and this goes. I'm dealing with a number of developments up in the other part of the district that I represent, and you hear all types of promises that are made. Developers approvals, they'll promise you the world. They'll promise you 100% affordable, 150% affordable housing. They'll promise you 8-bedroom units and, whatever you want, whatever the community asks for, they'll promise. But when the rubber meets the road, oftentimes those promises are like written in disappearing ink. And we, as a city, need to stand up for our rights as citizens, our rights as a government that is our city government and our state government that grants not only approvals but grants subsidies. Talk about the amount of subsidies that happen at Atlantic Yards from the city and the state. Are kind of unquantifiable. Hundreds of millions of dollars. And the commitments that were made. I'm just learning, and through the process of being in office, that you got to get these commitments ironclad. And if it seems as if they're trying to slip out of it, then you got to go back to the drawing board, and you got to rewrite it, and you got to get it ironclad, because our communities deserve no less. And we need to make sure that we are, as public advocate-elect James said, moving forward and as we're looking towards the future of our city, we need to start reorienting where our priorities are. We need to show, and I think that we're leading the way here in downtown Brooklyn, that we got to say and make it loud and clear to everyone that's listening that the communities that we represent and the communities that are in our neighborhoods that make up the fabric of our city, that have dedicated their lives to making our city a great place and a dynamic place and a place where families want to come and people want to come to realize their dreams. We have to reorient towards the people. We have to make sure that the people's interest is represented first and foremost, always. I just want to thank Assemblymember Brennan and all of my colleagues in government, Senator Montgomery, Assemblymember Millman, Public Advocate-elect James, Assemblymember Mosley, Councilmember-elect Lori Cumbo, because we're showing now that you got to stand strong, you got to stand together. You're never going to get anything done. So, thank you all very much.
Public Advocate-elect James, you have a replacement, and I'm delighted to introduce our new City Council Member-elect, Lori Cumbo.
Boy, what I'm inheriting. I want to thank the Fifth Avenue Committee, first and foremost, because I look forward to being a partner with you and many other not-for-profit organizations in this quest to create equity in our city government and all development projects. I'm very excited to be here, particularly from the stance that we have representatives from the City Council, the State Senate, and the State Assembly together as one. And that type of leadership together is going to be something that's going to be very powerful moving forward in this new administration. I also want to add that 60,000 people moved into the borough of Brooklyn just last year. People are coming here for all of the amenities that they are seeing internationally, are seeing here in Brooklyn, New York. And the Arena, as you know, is the #1 grossing arena in the United States of America, I believe second or third in the world. And when we see that type of development, we saw with the development of this project that there was a level of urgency. There was a level of excitement that was going on. And so we saw an arena develop before our very eyes within such a small time span that there was a consistency, there was an urgency, there was an immediacy to making sure that this project developed very rapidly and very quickly, on time, in budget, in order to open for Barbra Streisand, right? So we made sure on that end, it was made sure, and many people went to that concert and enjoyed it. And we want to see that same level of expediency in developing the affordable housing in our community. That's going to be critical, because if we continue to have so many people moving into the borough and we're not developing the level of affordable housing that's keeping pace, we're going to run most exciting and important time. So this is a very important issue that cannot wait. This is an issue that has to be addressed. The promises that were made have to be kept. And this is really for the vitality of the borough of Brooklyn. If we don't address this now, and if we don't continue to come together to demand that these units of housing, as well as the ones to come, are actually realized, we're going to push so many families that were so excited about the dream of what they thought Brooklyn was going to become. It's our job, not only for ourselves, but this is so important for our future generations. This is important for our children. This is important to make sure that they still have an existence. And not just an existence, but also prosperity and their ability to share in the growth and the development that is Brooklyn, New York, that their parents and grandparents like mine who came to Brooklyn in the 1930s. So this is really very important to me. I feel proud to stand with my colleagues in government, and we are going to continue to stand strong to make sure that a timeline that is in alignment with what was promised originally is kept, it's adhered to, and we're going to continue to work together to make sure that that happens. So I thank you all very much for your support. I look forward to inheriting the strong tradition of our council member, Letitia James, who has been a strong advocate and will be an even greater public advocate, and I look forward to working with her in tandem. Thank you.
Very nice, you're elected. Can I just ask persons who are representing elected officials if you'd raise your hands and identify yourselves? No particular order?
My name is LIRR. I'm from the Office of Assemblyman Lenthal. We signed on to the letter that was sent to Ratner.
Jason Haynes, new office of Assemblymember Kareem Kamara.
Thank you.
Patrick Riom from Congressman Clark's office.
I'm Catherine Zanell with Councilmember Brad Langer.
Dan Wiley with Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez. And last we checked, we know the Fifth Avenue Committee was able to build affordable housing without having to have an arena.
Thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Fifth Avenue Committee and Michelle for hosting this. I want to also thank Gib Bocconi from BrooklynSpeaks for his invaluable technical support and advocacy. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
A couple, but I'm going to temper myself because I've been reporting about this whole thing all along. So, one, the thing about the affordable housing, it was based on the AMI that includes Westchester and New Jersey. So, in this new negotiation, are you all going to try to include, well, the AMI for Brooklyn, even though that has increased over the past few years? And then there was another issue about the affordable low-income apartments of that project being scatter-sited off the site. So are you gonna try to make sure that all the housing is on the site instead of scattered like by the airport someplace?
Well, I can't speak for every individual member here, but your general point that the project is based on metropolitan area median income, which is substantially higher than the average incomes in Brooklyn, is well taken, and we know that, and we certainly want, as the state renegotiates this, or I certainly believe, and I'm sure that my colleagues in general share a similar point of view, that lower income families and individuals need to be taken into account in any modification.
Can I just add one thing, if I don't, and other folks that are affordable housing advocates, like Prater